hadn't felt this kind of deep love in my heart since taking ecstasy on the dance floors.
Welcome to the Alive and Aligned podcast, a show dedicated to helping you live a life of truth and share your fullest gifts with the world. I'm your host, Pete Byrne, and I'm here to open your mind to new perspectives, to introduce you to some epic humans who are already out there living their deepest truth. So now just grounding in, taking a breath, letting go of anything you're still holding onto from today, and just opening up to receiving this episode now. Let's dive on in. How do we bring age-old wisdom into our modern-day world? Adam Mahmoud is a man who's making ancient teachings available to a 21st century audience in a powerful and very accessible way. He's taught and performed in front of thousands and thousands of people across the world as a fire dancer and as a yoga teacher. He's also a meditation teacher for one of the biggest apps in the world, Breathe. Adam's life story is nothing short of fascinating, and in this podcast we dive into his journey from originally playing high-level sport and then dealing drugs for many years, only to find then yoga and Buddhism and fire dancing through multiple dark nights of the soul. And then going from performing at super clubs in Ibiza in front of 15,000 people to now coaching at a high level, leading yoga and meditation trainings, and combining food, mindset, meditation and movement as powerful tools for change. Adam's also recently become a father, and he's traveled the world with his partner. There's such wisdom and gold in this man, and he shares so much of it in this episode. So in this podcast, we explore the power of meditation as the key to unlock all other areas of your life, the potency of tuning into gratitude and the heart space, how to overcome betrayal and heartbreak in your life, the power of sexual energy and the shadows of the spiritual community. This was a really fun and edgy one. What does it really mean to be in integrity as a teacher, mentor, or a guru even? And what are the 3 biggest lessons that Adam has learned from recently becoming a father? We went super deep as usual on this podcast, but the real cherry on the cake for me with this one was Adam guiding me down a super unique rabbit hole, which was a Buddhist metta heart space meditation, which was super profound, like only a couple of minutes, but seriously, drop into this one, create some space, and just see what it does in your body. And this is what he's using to heal people who've experienced lifelong traumas and open themselves up maybe for the first time ever. So I'm really excited for you to get to experience that, to get to feel that in your body and know what's possible when you tune into the heart. I really hope you enjoy this podcast, guys. Mr. Mahmoud, did I get it right?
Perfect.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Peter.
How are you feeling today?
Very good. Been a busy day, but super happy to be here and excited for our conversation.
Likewise.
Yeah.
What does a busy day usually consist of? The typical busy day for you?
Okay, a typical busy day in my life is waking up at around 5:30 to get my meditation practice in before my son wakes up. Today was a special day. I had a coaching client at 7 a.m. Last minute one, just someone needed some immediate help.
Yeah.
And then quick moment to see the family, hugs, kisses, off to teach a meditation class, back to the house, answering all my emails, preparing for this, and then jumping in the car, taking a 2-hour session to drive down to see you, and then another business meeting straight after a dinner.
Nice.
That's the typical day at the moment.
Good.
Yeah.
There's a few little clues in there. There's meditation.
Yes.
Seems to be a dominant theme. Family.
Yep,
absolutely. There's coaching.
Indeed.
And I almost I'm imagining, like from what you told me, like a mix between like the digital tech side, maybe Zoom calls and emails, and then presence, family, open-heartedness, connection to whatever there is out there. Would that kind of sum it up?
Exactly.
Give you a little window into
that's a good window.
Nice. You have a son, you said?
I do, yeah. I have a 3.5-year-old.
I'd say that's a great presence practice.
The greatest teacher, the greatest teacher of all time, and definitely the most humbling on many levels.
Okay, so if you're into personal development, just get yourself a son.
Yeah.
Much better investment. And you get a human at the end of it, so.
There's nothing quite like it, for sure.
Maybe we can dive into that a little later.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Lots of golden nuggets came from, and are still coming from that whole journey.
Yeah, I'm sure he gives you some bomb drop insights every now and again.
Every single day.
Great.
Without
Love
fail.
It.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to Adam's son's wisdom later on the podcast. But for now, maybe just for the, like, I would say my intention for today is just to, like, we've literally only just met. We're sitting down, we're having our first proper conversation. So that's kind of new for me because usually I at least have some kind of relationship with the people I speak to on the podcast. So that's really exciting for me. My intention is to just get to know you, and hopefully through my lens, others can get to know you and the work you do as well. I suppose there's a few different topics that, you know, we've done some voice notes back and forth about some ideas, and there's a couple of juicy ones. What I like to say is, like, where's the gold, you know, that we can kind of mine into and go, ooh, something there.
Okay.
But yeah, we have some time to just explore and navigate and see what comes up. So I suppose my first question would be, if you could give us like the 3-minute, you know, extended elevator timeline of who you are, what you do.
Okay. Thank you for that opportunity. So my background was always high-level sports. I played academy basketball, was into skateboarding, gangster rap, and all that jazz. And then, unfortunately, fell out of more extreme sports. And when I was in basketball, got into substance abuse, was partying way too hard, got into performance-enhancing drugs, which then led on to other harder substances. And then in the space of about 3 years, ended up just being a professional drug dealer and criminal.
Wow, nice.
And then, thank God, and I was having a great time as well. You know,
Sure.
This is sort of 18 to 21, young, reckless, had no clue.
We've all been there.
Everyone's,
you know?
everyone's done their stint. I just took it to an extreme, as I like to do often.
Sure, yeah.
Thank God, 2 of my best friends decided to go backpacking around the world for a year after they finished their degrees. I jumped on their bandwagon. They invited me to come. They were like, you're in serious trouble. There's only bad scenarios that are going to happen to you. And we did a whole backpacking trip around the world that blew my mind wide open. It was Hong Kong, China, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and there was and more. You know, there's so many moments of awakening, of self-realization. I also had my first ever anxiety attack, a full-blown panic attack, and then was dealing with what I now know to be kind of PTSD and some substance withdrawal symptoms. But back then I had no vocabulary and had no idea what I was going through or experiencing. Luckily, I stumbled into a Ashtanga Vinyasa class, a yoga class back in 2005, and I also discovered the art of fire dancing in Koh Phangan, Thailand. And these elements stayed with me for quite some time. And I slipped into Buddhism as well. I started to meditate with some Thai monks just because I was just I was just fascinated.
Sure.
Ended up, you know, on a long bus journey sitting next to one, and it was just a fascinating conversation, and he was just filled with so much love. I continued to travel. I promised not to go back to my old ways. I went back to the UK, I slipped into my old ways, and then decided to leave again with the promise never to return. So I went back to Southeast Asia, continued to focus a lot more on meditation, yoga, and fire dancing. Then I cleaned my act up, got to a very good space, then wound up in Ibiza, Spain, working, which was not the best place for me to be. My first summer was...
It's another Adam and Eve's garden kind of job there, you know?
Yeah, and it was, you know, kid in the candy store, and I took all the forbidden fruits, and it came back to bite me harder than ever. I was in India for the winter, and I got myself into some very sticky situations. I was suffering with complete and utter just burnout. My nervous system was fried, and luckily I met my primary yoga teacher sitting on an aeroplane going back to Ibiza. He was literally the person sitting next to me.
Wow.
And for 4 or 5 years I trained with James diligently. I cleaned up my act. I focused on performance arts massively, and my career in the kind of scene of performance arts in Ibiza went from, you know, performing at the Sunset Strip where there's thousands of people to, you know, the super clubs in front of 15,000 people to running all their fire shows.
Wow.
Set up a production company there where we would specialize in fire entertainments for weddings, corporate gigs. And I was lucky enough to travel to India and Thailand in the winters. Did that for several years. Met my wife in a casting, who's a performance artist. We did a show together. Took that around the world, performed in India, Thailand, Germany. We've been all over with our show. And then in 2012, I realized that yoga was calling me to teach. So I went back to India, did another training. From 2013, I was teaching full-time. All the floodgates with yoga were like teach, teach, teach. I moved to Bali in that time, managed a yoga studio, and it was just, it felt like my calling. It felt like that was what I was meant to do. From day one, as soon as I started to teach, it was just everything opened. Then after 2 years of Bali, moved to Australia, toured up and down the East Coast, did some big fire events, was contracted to the Warner Brothers Studios, lived in Sydney for 6 months teaching there. Then we moved to Canada, where my wife studied to be a naturopathic doctor. Was doing huge events, taught North America's biggest yoga event 2 years in a row to 8,000 people all dressed in white, and got signed to Breathe Meditation app, third biggest meditation app in the world.
Wow.
Teachings have somehow reached hundreds of thousands, I think millions of people now. And it's kind of surreal because I just see figures and numbers, and every now and again I get some really nice messages from people. Became a father in Canada, and we knew that we didn't want to raise our son in the Western world. We knew that Bali was a very special hub, and we wanted him to have his first developmental years here. And also for the work that me and my wife do, it's very much around health and wellness, and this is a hub where lots of people from around the world come for health and healing.
Yes.
And that's what we've really focused on in the last decade of being together, is working through all of our own trauma, excelling in that, sharing it with other people through food, nutrition, exercise, mindset, meditation, all the tools that we bring into the self-development space. And that, in a nutshell, is it. To this point now, I teach in Uluwatu, down at the Astana. I run online events, I coach privately, and I teach meditation teacher trainings, yoga teacher trainings for 200 and 300-hour advanced students. And I'm also building an online platform to host a lot of that space on, and I'm working on some really exciting online courses as well that are coming out this year. So that's the short probably 5 minute elevator pitch. There's a lot to squeeze in there, and a lot that happened in between too.
That's amazing.
You can imagine, yeah.
That's super fascinating. Thank you so much. God, so many threads to pull. I'm the kid in the candy store now.
What will it be then? What candy are you going to have?
What will it be? Yeah. Just to reflect a few pieces, like first of all, I tend to see a pattern of in my own journey, and people that tend to wind up in Bali or in the more kind of conscious or spiritual community. It's a term I don't like to throw around too often for obvious reasons, but like people who kind of, as you said, I think the most important thing is people who are working through their past to be able to show up in the present fully and for future generations. That would be what I describe as the conscious community. And one theme I consistently see is having some kind of or series of dark nights of the soul, both on a life circumstance level, on a health level usually as well. So my thing was I worked in the Greek islands and I was running live music bars it's called circus, really? So not fire, but there was a fire dancer, he breathes fire, so it's similar enough. And I had a breakdown on stage 2016 and went from like full party mode for the previous 4.5 years to, raw vegan, water fasting, celibate, abstinent, all the things, the full pendulum. So like, I think it's kind of a rite of passage. I think that like if for it sounds like, as you said, everything you do, you seem to do pretty big, So it sounds like the application of that drive, that part of you, stemming into meditation or like you're doing meditation. Okay, you're on the third biggest app in the world. Fire dancing, right? Biggest event in yoga teacher train. Like, yeah, it's amazing. So epic and inspiring to hear. Okay, what's a juicy question? So, based on all this, there's a few different practices, a few different outlets there, like, and they all, I'm sure, have their own pros and cons, like fire dancing versus coaching versus meditation, versus like Buddhist teachings. Okay, what would you say is like if you had to like throw away and practice no other modalities except for one for the rest of your life, what would be the most powerful, all-encompassing?
That's a very tough question.
It is.
However, the answer did come quite quickly as well at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that would 100% be meditation. It would. And that's really why, definitely more in the last 5 years, that's why I don't really like the word niche, but that's what I've swayed more towards.
Yeah.
Because in my experience, all of the aspects of play, I love. And that's one of the reasons I'm here in the world. However, the fruits of meditation and going deep into some of these teachings of the lineage, they make it all the play more worthwhile, and more conscious and more embodied.
More presence, right? Yeah.
It's just, and it's like a master key system to unlock all the other things.
Yeah.
So as I was doing all, the fire dancing, the coaching, all of the other aspects of yoga, the deeper I would go into the meditation practices, it was like unlocking different codes in my body.
Yes.
And I feel like the Buddha is for sure one of the most enlightened, inspiring people to walk the face of the planet in the last 2,500 years. And his teachings are still applicable today to help people in massive amounts of pain and suffering. And I find it very comforting to know that there is a set path to walk, and there is a specific outcome that you can attain through following the certain steps. And I am early on in my exploration of like spiritual practices, which started 18, 19 years ago. There's a lot of just exploring and dead ends and paths that don't really lead to many places.
Yeah.
And that's just a very solid lineage that I respect deeply. And it's brought a lot of joy into my life. Just the essence of metta, love and compassion, love and kindness. It's something so fundamental and so simple. However, for me, it's the most basic, fundamental thing that we can all practice on a daily basis. Just being nice to people, sending love and kindness to yourself, feeling your heart with compassion, like feeling the people around you in your life, your neighbors, out into the community, into the world.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it has the biggest impact, which is why I would choose that one.
And so I was kind of waiting to hear what you would say, because that would then flavor. It's kind of like, when you got these multiple choice things like choose your adventure, it's like, all right, we're going down the meditation route then. So when it comes to meditation, what are the pillars or the core pieces of that make that so powerful? Because in my understanding, there's many, many ways one can meditate, forms of meditation. In the same way, so I'm a breathwork facilitator, connected breathwork, so working with the subconscious and altered states.
Yes.
There's also many different types of breathwork, and I could say breathwork and someone goes, oh yeah, I know what that is.
Yeah.
And like in that case, a person might project or apply their lens of that practice or whatever it is onto what I do, or in this case what you do. Okay. So when you say meditation, I'm sure if someone's listening, they might have an experience or a bias around what is meditation. So maybe you can tell us what it is for you.
Great question. And there are many different forms of meditation out there. A lot of what is in the mainstream is more active meditation, and it's all active to some degree. Creative visualization, manifestation, we would classify as that. And then the more passive or one-pointedness is where you choose one specific meditation object, and you would meditate on that object until you become so absorbed in that object that there is no separation between you and the object. And the primary one that we always use, usually in Buddhism, is the breath, because it's always regularly available.
Yeah.
So from the moment you're born, you take your first breath.
Yeah.
To the moment you die, you take your last. I mean, you're a breathwork teacher, you know all this.
Sure.
And
took me years to figure that one out.
Exactly. And they say, if you're going into being a monk in more the Bhakti tradition, they explain to you, look, your breath is your biggest companion. It's your best friend.
Yeah.
Every single other relationship in your life is transient. It comes and goes.
Yeah.
Parents, loves, everything.
Yeah.
But your breath is always with you. So it's vitally important that you have that deep connection to the breath. You can use it as a sharpening tool. So because the breath is always there, there's a lot of reasons why we choose the breath. One is that it's a bridge. So it's a bridge from your internal landscape to the external world.
Yes.
It helps us move beyond this layer of perceived separation that, it's real. We have skin, we are, we're a body, we're flesh and bones.
Yeah.
However, we know that on the quantum level, when we break everything down, there is no separation. We're all just atoms vibrating at different frequencies.
Sure.
So because it's a bridge, it helps us bridge this understanding from the external world to the internal world.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is it's an anchor. It really anchors us back into the present moment all the time. And one of the big aspects about dealing with all the subconscious, unconscious realms is, that the conscious mind is only 5 to 10%. Well, if we can train ourselves to fully be in the present moment connected to the breath and maintain this level of observation, then the subconscious, when it does pop up to the surface, we're able to observe it and choose to engage in it if it's a useful activity, because that subconscious mind is very useful for when we need to access information rapidly.
Sure.
When it's a trigger and a trauma response, however, having the equanimity just to be able to pause and take just a simple or an exhale, an inhale or an exhale, just that clarity to stop brings us back into presence.
Yes.
And that helps to override everything. Like the idea is, the Buddha said there's 4 ways to meditate. Seated, laying down, standing, and walking. Mm-hmm. Everything we do in life involves that, or a variation of it.
Yeah.
So people think, I'm going to do my 20 minutes or 45 or an hour, or whatever the time is, doesn't matter. And that's my meditation block. But that's just your base camp of deep practice where you really hone in for you to have that rest, to go super deep in your practice that sets you up for the other 16 to 18 hours that you're awake.
Yeah.
So you're not unconscious. You're not having that daydreaming moment of just thinking about, the negative past or your angst about the future.
Yeah.
It's always this training of continually being connected to your breathing.
Yeah.
Because as you know, the breath controls everything.
Yes.
It's our primary source of nourishment.
Yes.
And it's a sharpening tool. The third one, we really use it as a whetstone. It sharpens our level of focus. And you're into music and coaching. It's like when you master focus, whenever you apply it into anything, you learn so much faster, you can accomplish more. And that's part of the reason I've been able to go into a lot of these rabbit holes so deeply.
Yes.
Is because I just learned how to focus. And it wasn't always, like, meditation was one thing, the flow arts, fire dancing was another, and just being able to fully immerse and absorb that deeply sped up the learning time.
Yeah.
And it does. It speeds up learning time and slows down real time. So to answer your question, meditation is really training your mind. I stay away from it being some mystical, esoteric practice. I see it as a form of brain training, of mindfulness training for life. It's life training. It's teaching us how to use our mind, how to focus our mind. And then ultimately, one of my main things of choosing the Buddhist lineage is because their secret weapon, if you like, is metta, which is love and kindness, love and compassion meditations. And for me personally, on the journey that I had, it cracked my heart wide open, and I was able to heal a big trauma that I'd had with my father, and it was so therapeutic, and I hadn't felt this kind of deep love in my heart since taking ecstasy on the dance floors.
There you go.
And out of the, there's over 15,000 research papers citing the positive effects on meditation. Metta is the safest, the easiest to apply, generally the best for everybody, and everyone needs more love and compassion in their life.
Absolutely.
It's the source.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like if we talk about negativity or fear or victim mindset, then it's kind of everywhere. Like it's on every corner, figuratively. Indeed. But it's like it does really take, I think these days, like that intention to really tune into that. And like on that topic, it's really interesting because it's been something I've been exploring the last months, because it's kind of one of these things, I suppose, with this concept of love, right?
Yes.
I thought I knew what that was, and maybe I thought it was like a sensation that ran through my body when I heard a beautiful piece of music, maybe, or receiving validation from a romantic partner, that I can show up fully for, like no one has ever shown up before. And with the embodied practice, like with breath, for instance, there's an actual physical response. Like there's a strong physical feeling, which was totally new to me. I'm like, oh wow, like I just told people to talk about the heart. It's like, oh yeah, you know, whatever. Like it's a figure of speech, you know. It's like almost like a hallmark kind of thing. Here's a heart, you know. But it's a thing, you know. It's actually a thing.
It is a big thing.
Yeah,
it's a very big thing.
So you were speaking about this metta meditation. Is that what you call it? So would you say that's a specialty of yours, or is that something when you're teaching? Is that something you focus more on, or is it just kind of like one of the tools?
It's one of the tools, but it's definitely one of the main tools. One of the main tools. I started to really focus on the heart because on my father's side, my grandfather in Egypt and my father both died of sudden heart attacks in their 50s.
Wow.
And it just set the wheels in motion when I started to get deeper into meditation, and I saw some mystics, and you know, I had 2 mystics in a row tell me you need to look after your heart.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm listening to these wise people, I'm doing these metta practices, I'm healing a lot of these traumas, and then I started to really research the heart, especially as I was doing more physical aspects of yoga, and you know, some of them were heart-based practices.
Sure.
You know? It came up a lot, especially when I was early on in my career or teaching evolution, and I was training with a lot of American teachers. There was a lot of emphasizing opening your heart.
Yeah.
And for me, being from, you know, South Wales, I was a little bit like, what the heck? Like, what are you talking about? You know?
Yeah.
And I was just very curious. So then I stumbled across a company in California called the Heart Math Institute, and they have some incredible research about heart frequency and vibration. And in the late 90s, I believe it was, there was a famous Japanese scientist, Dr. Emoto, who did all of the water experiments. Do you remember these?
Yeah.
So research them, but long story short, the highest vibrational frequencies we have are love and gratitude.
Yeah.
Going into these elevated states in meditation practice and literally feeling heart go into a coherent rhythm. So in 1991, there's a famous research paper by a doctor called Dr. Amor, and Amor in Spanish is love.
Yeah.
Found that
Classic.
It's classic.
Yeah.
It's an absolute classic. Found that the heart has its actual own second brain, that it has neurites mimicking the neurological functions in the brain, but they call these sensory neurites. At the time, they discovered around 60, 70,000 in the heart. So when we experience, for example, trauma, because you know this, it's not just our brain experiencing the trauma, but it's the heart. That's why, for me, I love psychology. However, it's just trying to untangle the webs here.
Yeah.
And it's not enough to deal with the emotional response in the heart.
Yeah.
When going into these elevated states, and it's very easy to do. I mean, I've spent a long time mastering how to get people to these elevated states.
Yeah.
It's a palpable feeling. Like every cell in your body starts to vibrate on a completely different frequency.
Yes.
And it's just so calming and so soothing. And for me, I'm always looking at the most efficient way to help people. My goal is really just to help as many people as possible that are suffering.
Yes.
And when I can take someone who's been in a lot of pain and suffering, and I can literally just instruct them to place their hand in a certain way, breathe in a certain way, drop into the intelligence of the heart, and elevate through sometimes visualization, if they're a visual person, if they're not, just feeling or repeating words to themselves, there's like this big shift in their whole physiology. Their face changes, their muscles relax, and they can experience what it feels like to be in a state of gratitude or love. And that's the gift. And learning then is training. Well, how do we stay in those frequencies more often?
Yeah.
How can we train ourselves to be in a state of just saying thank you all the time for everything? Reminding yourself the anchor of the breath. Okay, impermanence. My God, I have one more breath. Thank God for that. Like,
Yeah.
just another one. It's a gift. Everything's a gift.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Love it, man. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
This is like, I didn't know where we were going to go, but this is really curious. How long does it take you to guide someone into that kind of a state?
Would you like to do it now?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's do it. Okay. This is a real treat. I was hoping I would get to be able to share this with everyone that's listening and you. So Find any comfortable position that you can just sit in, and it doesn't have to be an upright seated posture. It can be something very relaxed. Some people are very sensitive. They have a strong internal sense of perception. Like if I ask you, can you feel your heart beating when you close your eyes?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's variations of that. Some people can feel it extremely. Some people there is no feeling that.
Yeah.
So the easiest thing you can do, your hand is covered in senses. I mean, there is literally so many nerve endings in the hand. So if you just put your hand over your heart and you find the center of your chest, you go slightly off to the left. Mm-hmm. So you'll also connect to the thymus gland there. You'll feel the heart muscle. And simply all I'll ask everyone to do is just choose a focal point directly in front of them and lock on to that point that's not moving. Choose one static point in front of you and just take in all of the surroundings in the room. So allow your vision to be wide and expansive, but you're staying on this singular point. And then take a slow breath in. Then when you breathe out, allow everything to relax and soften, like all of the skin, all of the muscles, and just let your eyelids go droopy and half close. Still staying on that singular point. You can sense brainwaves just drop into this alpha state already. And you take another big breath in. And exhale, let that go. And just allow your eyes to close effortlessly and naturally. And then bring your awareness to your hand on your chest. And just begin to breathe rhythmically. So inhale for 4 or 5. And exhale for 4 or 5. And feel the warmth of your hand as it connects onto your chest. Feel the tissues and the skin of the chest. Almost welcoming the hand. Feel there's this energetical quality of these 2 points meeting. And begin now to slowly bring your awareness to the chest, like you're breathing awareness at the heart center. And we're exhaling from the heart center. So obviously the breath will go in through the nose or the mouth and into the chest and into the lungs, but the focus is just feeling the rhythm of the heart. And if you can't feel the rhythm of the heart, that's fine as well, but just feel the connection there, feel the warmth in your chest. As you feel the heart muscle beating, I'd like you to think about somebody that you love. This could be your partner, a child, one of your parents, even a pet, somebody that just ignites that feeling of just love. Just slightly raise the corners of your mouth, give yourself a small smile as you just feel how much love you have in your heart for this person. And if a person's not coming, just remember a moment in time where you were feeling like this. Now let's all just let go of the person and just hold that feeling of love in your heart. As you feel that vibration of love in the heart, just say thank you. Thank you to your heart muscle for all of the work that it does. Your heart beats approximately 100,000 times a day. Just say thank you for that. Take a moment to thank the strength of your lungs. And keep that smile on your face as you just remind yourself how lucky you are to be embodied. And just run through the body, just say thank you for all of the organs, all of the different systems, the nervous system, circulatory system, just go through anything. Remind yourself of the 5 senses, how lucky you are to experience taste, touch. And finally, just keep saying thank you to each and every breath that you receive. Remember, every single breath is a gift. None of us know when our last breath will be. which is what makes every single moment that we reconnect to the breath and the present moment a unique opportunity to reawaken to the beauty of the now. And when you're ready, softly open your eyes back to that singular point that we looked at the beginning. Let your peripheral vision expand very slowly as you come back to welcome in everything that is in your field. And just feeling wide awake, feeling healthy, rejuvenated, and better than before. So it was a very quick introduction of how we can get into those elevated states and how calm and peaceful it feels at the same time. But also quite elevated too. There's a sense of real, it's love.
Yeah, you're dealing that natural high over there now.
Yeah, what can I say? It's in my blood, I guess.
You bypassed the dodgy market stuff. Wow, man, that was great. That was epic.
Thank you.
I noticed almost like a surprise at like the reminder of, wow, my organs are fucking killing it, you know?
Exactly.
And the senses, and like, wow, how would it be without taste, you know? You know, it's so fundamentally simple, and yet the power of bringing intention back to that, it's just like, yeah. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And absolutely, it's really stripping away everything and coming back to what's really important. It's so simple. It can be so simple. Just humans, we like to complicate things. We like to complicate things.
Still letting that land. So it's interesting because this concept of, I call it like the silver bullet. It's like the one thing that like can smash apart the resistance or the fear or the trauma or whatever it is, you know? And for me, it's been in my own life, and then in supporting others, like finding what, as you said, is the most efficient way I can help someone. You know, that's going to be the best use of my time and energy, that I'm not like, you know, it's like crossing boundaries or like emptying my tank to try and help someone, you know, which definitely I've done in the past. Yep. He's smiling, he gets it. But then the other side of it is, how can I support and help many people and find a way to share that that's transferable, that's, you know, it feels wrong to say that the heart is scalable, but, you know, that kind of vibe. It's like, that is, I suppose, when we talk about mission or talk about purpose, that is something that's really fundamentally worthwhile, because even the Buddhist boys, you know, that are meditating 30 plus years maybe, you know, and in a way they're holding down a frequency, no doubt, you know, they're representing a portion of humanity and keeping that energy like held based on just them existing. And at the same time, the ability to ground that information and bring it back, kind of like the returning from the Odyssey with the gifts for the people, it's kind of what I feel this is. So what are some ways that you're endeavoring to bring the essence of what you've learned and these teachings from meditation and yoga and Buddhism down to the average person so that they can experience more love, gratitude, joy in their lives?
Great question. And that's part of the reason why I run many different modalities, whether it's teacher trainings, coaching as well. The best way usually for me, and I this is why I still love the one-to-one space, because everyone is so unique. Yes. We always have similar issues and problems. However, it's the connection and the support of having someone listen to you and then help you rewrite your story. I feel like that's one of the biggest things would be so beneficial for people to learn how to do, is to rewrite their old story of themselves, to realize that the past is the past. It is a piece of them, but it does not define them. It does not have to define them. And framing it in a more positive way when we reflect on the past. I feel like that's real gold. Yeah. And then it all depends who I'm teaching. On the mass level, that's why I chose the metta or the love and kindness meditations, because it's generically the best for everybody. A disclaimer, the only time that these have been shown to have negative side effects are so for example, we go through a specific list in some of the practices where we send love and kindness to ourselves, our family, friends, neutral people who might have done something to betray us. The only time that it's had negative side effects is when people try to send love and compassion or forgiveness to someone who's abused them, and that link is too strong.
Yes.
And that can be a parent, that could be a neutral person or a stranger.
Yeah.
There has to be a moment where enough healing has taken place and enough distance that's something real, and you never forgive the action, but there's
a humanizing or a compassion with,
to understand where they were coming from that pain and suffering, not excusing anything. So it's easier, and that's the only time, if you are looking to do a lot more love and kindness meditations or metta meditations, if you've been abused by anyone, it's still really sensitive for you, just do not go anywhere near that person. That's the only time it's shown to have any negative effects. Apart from that, it's the gold seal of approval for everyone. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it's super important, like the balance between, particularly because I imagine a lot of people would be doing this as a solo practice, maybe with some guidance, with a meditation teacher or something. But I imagine the average person is going on the app kind of thing. And,
exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, it's really interesting to think about this idea of like the humanizing of people's actions. And I imagine a big part of that forgiveness and compassion is that, of course, abuse is far down the spectrum, but like people who have, we believe, wronged us or done things to us in the past, and maybe you've experienced that once or twice in your life. So how has this kind of a practice allowed you to, what's been the process of finding that forgiveness, of finding that, like humanizing those people or finding compassion?
Good question. So everyone's had people that have betrayed them, have hurt them, have broken their hearts. Everyone. It's part of life.
Sure.
And when I started to really go deep into more the metta aspect and the Buddhist philosophy, this was over a decade ago, it helped to repair and heal all of the people, that I felt that I might have done just the smallest thing that might not have been completely honorable. Even if in the moment I felt like I was in the right, after years of reflection and gaining more wisdom, I would have liked to have handled situations better. Yeah. So being able to almost go back in time, changing my story, and being able to just feel empathy, love, and compassion for somebody that I might have wronged, because that's a very important part, not pretending that we are all, I'm doing the love and kindness, I'm a saint now. Everyone's done their things in this world. Yeah. And it's a way of feeling like that repair has been done, and also just letting go of any negative charge that I have towards another human being for whatever, cheating me out of a business deal, stealing some money. It's not honorable. At the time I was furious, but it was when I've experienced some of these things that were quite traumatic in the time, through that pain was my source of bigger self-realizations, and I grew more through the pain and suffering than a lot of the bliss moments. Yes. So it's being able to go back and observe, okay, that person must have been desperate for money or were coming from a place of real pain and suffering. Yeah. And just seeing it with compassion and understanding and having that distance and just letting go of the charge of anger or hatred towards another human being. Yeah. Because that stuff eats away at the human psyche and body. Yeah. And really
it's only you it's going to affect at the end of the day.
100%.
You're not hurting them by holding on to the resentment kind of thing.
Exactly.
Although there can be some kind of belief that letting go therefore makes it okay. That by holding on to the pain, that somehow it's the unfairness of being wronged or betrayed or is somehow kept alive. There's an analogy that I use, which is the loaded gun, and it's like this idea of like if you saw a man cross the road and punch a guy and take his wallet, you'd say, well, he's a bad man. He shouldn't do that. That's wrong, you know? But then if you knew across the street there was a dude with a shotgun saying, go punch that guy and take his wallet or I'll kill all your family, you'd be like, yeah, fair enough, you know? Fair enough. So it's like, what's the loaded gun pointed at someone that's forcing them to do something that we deem to be wrong or bad? Particularly if we're the guy getting punched and our wallet taken, you know? But to be able to go on that like bird's eye view and say, oh shit, actually, okay, fair enough, you know? I think for me anyway, I hold the belief that that's always available, even for the really gnarly boys that are, you know, out there in the world doing things. It's like just a lot of guns, you know, pointed their direction. As you're starting to maybe pick up on, I love a good analogy.
You do. No, me too. I love them. I really like it, and I love what you said. It's really about having that bird's eye perspective of everything, because when we zoom far enough out, we get to see the whole picture, and that's something that can be challenging to understand in the world that we play in, because we do live in a world of polarities. Ultimately, in, you know, the more spiritual aspect of life, there is no dual. Everything is one. That's why these teachings are quite hard to grasp, and a lot of the really deepest parts of the teachings, a lot of people only grasp them to the later stages of their life. There's certain practices that there's a reason why we have elders. Because they've seen life, they've experienced life, they're much closer to death. They have a completely bird's eye perspective from people who are in their 30s and 40s. And wait there, I lost my train of thought for a second. It will come back. Because we live in this world of duality, we have the North and South poles. So when we have this amount of love in the world, there's going to be an equal opposing force. That's the choices that we have. It's like every choice will take you closer to, you know, nirvana, or like heaven, for lack of a better word, or deeper into hell. And it does. I mean, I've made many negative choices in my life, and it's a spiraling circle down. And it can just keep going down. And it's the same with positive choices. You can continually spiral up. And for me, in this world, it's about having that neutral playing field, but we're also trying to elevate and raise consciousness as best we can. So making every single choice that you can as positive as you can. Simply asking yourself, okay, in this situation, what would love do? Like in this moment, if I had to choose, what would love tell me to do in this moment?
It's almost like a homing beacon, like, or some kind of, I'm trying to think of like in a way of describing it, like some kind of like magnet, maybe internal magnet that's drawing us to a destination that we believe we want to go to, this positive destination over here in north. But we've got all these things maybe in our past that have like attached magnets that have the opposite polarity pulling us south or down. And it's until we identify and remove those negatively charged magnets that we can just drift up to North Pole to positive heaven, light, whatever you want to call it.
That's a nice picture of it, and that almost relates closely to the tendencies of the lower energy centers that we play with. It's that 3 primal animalistic energies that draw down. It's like excretion, elimination, power, sex, greed. That's all pulling us down. Shame, guilt, fear, it's all pulling us down. And when we get to the heart, those are all the elevated states where we move into. That's why, for me, focusing on the heart, that's one of the hardest bridges. To go from like the power and the control and you know, there's this whole entrepreneur side of like hustle. And it's challenging for people to move up into the heart. To be like, okay, I'm going to surrender a little bit of my will. I'm still going to work and do all those things, but do it with joy and do it with some love. For now.
Well, of course, the nature of the game is that like you can't only open up to the good stuff, you know, polarity and the idea, like, of course, the spiritual community, like we love the idea of like we only love and light, you know. But as we know, the dark it's just different flavors. It's like you got your crayon box, you got the yellows and the oranges, but then you've also got dark green and gray and stuff. But you need them all to make the full picture. So
100%. It's all energy. It's all energy, and it's very powerful energy when we know how to master it and don't succumb to its grip on us. And it's interesting looking at kind of the more shadow aspects of ourselves, especially watching my my son, because there's elements where he does things that are just, it's really, it's not great. I'm looking at it as a father, and I have my judgment of like trying my best to guide him into what I think is correct.
Yes.
However, that shadow energy is, I'm watching, I'm like, oh, that's deeply in all of us. This like darker, animalistic, primal just side of us. It was very interesting to watch how I understand as my father, I'm educating him to be the best human that I feel that he can be.
Yeah.
However, there is also some, I want to use the suppression, but it's there. It's observing all these shadows and then moving him closer towards the light. And I wonder how many people have really had certain aspects of their not even shadow, but just primal self flattened by parents, repressed by school and society, and just not being able to express.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize until I went traveling around the world to see how much suppression is all over the world in every single culture. And of course, you have some breakaway, pockets of like groups of punks and people who really
people having tantric orgies over here. And
well, it's a recipe for disaster. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think sexuality is a great example of that, where it's more of a primal thing that as a culture, there's an interesting relationship to it, where certain elements like we could say sexuality plus heart equals, love and relationship and connection healthily. But because we get disconnected from that, it spills into these more shadow expressions, which is, pornography or objectification, and spilling even into people acting out sexual desires against the will of others, which is just basically the dark side. Usually you'd imagine from a repression and believing like this part of me is wrong and bad, therefore it's not welcome, until the part that the time it realizes, well, it's part of me, it's got to come out somehow, consciously or otherwise.
Well, it's extremely powerful energy. There's a reason why advertising companies spend billions on sexy adverts. I mean, sex is such a primal, powerful energy to play with. And you even see it in the spiritual community of so many teachers falling off the bandwagon and abusing their positions of power with students all over, and not just take the Catholic, the church. I mean, it's rife. Yeah. And it's not just spiritual communities, it's any positions of power often get abused. Yeah. Especially in the spiritual ones, though, because they do play with a lot of powerful energy.
Yes.
And because a lot of teachers do suppress that, it's not expressed in a healthy way. There's lots of monastic monks or people who are taking a vow of celibacy in their country, and then they get elevated in the Western world to be these big guru type figures. And if you're a monastic monk, you spend all your time with men, or women if you're a nun. Yeah. And to be exposed then to all these beautiful Westerners just throwing themselves at you, it gets, that suppression comes up because they're not in their natural surroundings.
Yes.
And I feel like they give way to temptation. There's a reason why these traditions and communities were communities, because they draw sources of strength and power not to go into those tendencies and direct all of that towards the higher realms of consciousness. And it's a challenge to play with it in the West. It's really a challenge. That's why you can find all these tantric orgasm workshops, and it's, I've got my opinions.
Sure.
I've got my opinions about them. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Sure. Well, like anything, we could talk about, meditation, breathwork, yoga. There's always going to be the original lineage and then all the spin-offs that people take, cherry pick pieces and put some gloss and a marketing funnel on the front of it kind of thing, Yep. We actually have in our musical, we have a character called Guru Das.
Oh, nice.
Who's he's like the antagonist of the story, and he's basically he's distraught because now, because he used to have lots of beautiful women coming to his temple that would worship him, and now since the invention of the internet and all these mindfulness apps, actually there's no more women coming to the temple. So he's invented a device called the Feely, which it pretends to heal people with sound frequencies, but actually sucks the energy from them.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, remotely. So he's got a song just for a shout out for all the gurus.
Yeah, let's do it.
Give yourself to me, surrender what you thought was real. All of your troubles will be healed, your soul will finally be free. Get down on your knees, pray to the guru that you see, renounce the gods that you believe, for I will show you Samadhi. Yeah, that's the vibe. And like you said, it's taking energies that are very powerful and people who are in quite vulnerable states, because they've stepped into the realm of like, I'm breaking away from the matrix or whatever it is, and stepping into the world of like, what the fuck is going on in my body, like that I can't operate in a normal life anymore, and then falling into like coming away from effectively like this some degree of like powerless system where they haven't become empowered yet. They've been in some kind of system or setup where they're in a school system or a religious system or a corporate system, and then that feels familiar. So then it's just the same thing, but in a spiritual context with some, white and turbans and that kind of thing. What's been your experience of, the different teachers and the different gurus or mentors that you've come across? How have you refined your intuition around the people who are like fully like legit in integrity, and the ones that maybe are more like, not that they don't mean well, but there's still some shadow present? Like, what have been the things that have stood out for you, the difference between those two?
That's a great question, because there are very few teachers actually out there with real integrity, and it's a challenge as well, because most of the real teachers that I found have lots and lots of integrity. They're in a position where they don't have to rely on their teachings to financially make the money. Part of the reason I set up a coaching business and did some other avenues of business, so I didn't have to rely on my meditation or teaching yoga to really be my source of income, because I could feel in some moments after I'd been doing it a number of years that I was focusing, and it felt a bit like a business, and it was never why I started to do any of this. Same with Fight. It was just purely passion and for the love of wanting to share it with people. I was very fortunate that in my first 3 teachers, they are all so integral. They just have so much integrity. They would always welcome me in. They never asked anything of me. It was really, I just had a very unique experience. And then as soon as I started to mix with, and that was a teacher in Ibiza who was a gentleman from London called James Demir, who was wonderful. A teacher in India, Vijay, who was an Ashtanga-based practitioner, and a teacher here called Pakmurta Ada in Bali. Beautiful lights. I mean, there was just wisdom. They're just welcoming you in for any conversation with no judgment. I could feel this sense of welcoming. And then I started to teach in the North American yoga scene and started to work in like the high corporate level with people who used to be ex-Wall Street sharks who then bought yoga studios and went down the yoga path. And I started to see a very different type of person. And it was, the veil got lifted off my starry eyes of, oh my God, I have amazing teachers, to, oh my God, what the heck are these narcissists doing in these positions of power? And I kept seeing it over and over again. So the things to look out for, honestly, I always look for, do they have long-standing relationships? And do they have long-standing people around them who've supported them for many years? Because you often find in the spiritual world, not often, but on the smaller scale, I find they don't have big followings. There's this constant high turnover. And if you just ask a few questions and ask some people, they'll tell you. They'll tell you. And unfortunately, when you're new in practice, I just recommend feeling quite a few different people out to see who you really resonate with, and just do your homework. Ask questions. Just ask questions.
And also, I suppose, keeping in mind that, as a lens to look through, that that there, as you said, it can attract, one of the archetypes can be someone who's slightly more narcissistic and receives validation or self-worth through being in that position of power and creating an illusion around that, which with social media even more so, it's very possible. You can buy a couple of followers here and there, and it's all legit. So I really love that as a framework. And also with those people around them, like, what's the structure, the power structure around that? Are they yes men, kind of, or in service, like, he's great and that's why he pays my bills kind of thing, Anything else? Any other? I love that so far, though. That's a great A great piece.
Ultimately, every real teacher is empowering you every step of the way.
Mm-hmm.
All of the teachings that they deliver are supposed to be empowering you. Every step of the way, it should feel like, yes, sometimes they'll challenge you, sometimes there'll be moments of some friction, because friction is necessary for growth.
Yeah.
However, ultimately, the whole goal is always about empowering you, empowering you, empowering you, empowering you. And one of my teachers said, my greatest gift is when my students just say to me, I don't need them anymore.
Yeah.
Because they've been empowered enough that they're just literally the embodiment of being a sovereign being, and they know their internal compass, they know which way they're going, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super powerful.
So yeah, make sure that you feel empowered. That's the biggest thing. And that's, if you're having reoccurring thoughts about your teacher, and it's like drawing your just thoughts.
I need to
back
ask them
to
something,
yeah,
or I need,
just this reliance of just constantly going back to them. And if it's like a positive affirmation that empowers you, and it's like, oh, they really spoke to me in this moment and it landed, great. But if it's you, just your thoughts drifting towards that teacher all the time, then that's a sign that you're not really fully empowered yourself. You're still needing a teacher. And a teacher is great. It's good to have teachers.
Yes.
However, that's my main message, is make sure that they're empowering you every step of the way. That all of the teachings are empowering you to understand yourself on another level.
And also noticing for that flutter of low-grade anxiety that's like, oh, Jesus, what if they think that of me? And which can be setting up for a teacher-student dynamic, which is obviously not what you want to get to. I think the final exploration will be bringing it right back around to your son. What are 3 of the biggest lessons your son has taught you?
3 of the biggest lessons.
They can be in his words or yours now.
Love that I'd never experienced before. That was the biggest revelation. I knew that when we were having, like when I was going to be a dad, that it would change my perspective, and I knew that I was getting ready to experience love on a way that I couldn't imagine. However, when it happened, and we were in the moment where, he'd just come out of my wife had breastfed straight away, and then it was my turn to hold my son for the first time. So I took my t-shirt off, sat on the chair, and just had him rest on my heart. And I felt like the closest thing I could say, seeing as we talked about sex, it was like an orgasm in the heart. There was just such an overflow of love that I've never experienced before.
Wow.
And that was just a profound moment to realize that I'd never loved anything that much in my life before. 2, ultimate patience, which I can say I'm still learning daily, because it's the biggest trigger ever, because there's moments where my son just rebels constantly, and being in the world of schedules and timing, when you're trying to do things like get ready for school, there's always an opportunity to take that deep breath in and relax and let all of it go. So patience has been the biggest one, the biggest one. And for 100%, the third one would be presence, like ultimate presence, because it's challenging being in a world of devices and being available 24/7 and having emails. I actually started to work more away from the house and go to an office, because I realized that I didn't want to be in the same room as my son and not be present with him.
Yeah.
I didn't want him to see that the phone or the laptop has more importance over him.
Yeah.
So presence is the biggest one, of dropping in with him, and not just dropping in like, okay, I'm here, but dropping onto his eye level and really coming into his space, because he's viewing reality on this level, just visually and primally, and just being able to drop into his space and be like, hey, how are you? And that was a noticeable shift, to be able to just be fully present in that way. So those are my three big ones, I think.
It's interesting, and like almost like from an embodied level, like there's a part of you that remembers 3.5, and so getting, like, what a gift to get a portal back into that experience, to that version of you. And I totally hear you. It's like this, the being able to be the one that sets that changes the script, that gets to, as you said, write things differently, consciously.
And that's actually the biggest challenge, because like you said, it opens up a portal of me experiencing him at that age and understanding the lens. However, the initial reaction is to parent the same way that I was parented. And me and my wife both catch ourselves when we're on that loop, and it's like, whoa, take a breath, break the pattern, break the program, do something to shift it, because it's just autopilot.
Totally.
And it was fascinating to watch, because even after all the deep work that I'd done, I was like, I'm ready for kids. Humbling experience.
Wow.
Humbling
There's
experience.
another level, a few levels.
It's great to be humbled and not think that I've got everything figured out all the time. It was a big humbling experience. So it's highly recommended. It's definitely one of the most challenging experiences I've ever gone through. However, as I mentioned earlier, we live in a world of polarity, so you can't have that much love without equal that much chaos sometimes, and frustration and friction. But it's definitely worth it. It's one of the most incredible feelings. And children have a luck of their own. I was always stressed out about, can I financially afford to have a child? Can I do it? And children have their own luck. They come in with their own karma. And it's wonderful to see how doors open for him through me as well. So it's all a gift. It's all a gift. And my main mission at the moment is just try to serve as many people as possible.
I love that. If someone was sufficiently inspired and touched by, let's say, the meditation we did, and like to talk about the Buddhist teachings and principles, what could be some avenues for them to, like, the next step to explore that more?
Multiple. You can reach out to me. I'm always happy to hear from people and point them in the right direction, have conversations with people. I really enjoy the human connection. It's one of the reasons why I love coaching, is taking people on that personal journey. So through my website, you can personally purchase and download meditations. Breathe meditation app. You'll find 30 different recordings on there, all from sleep to metta to mastering the mind, lots of different genres of meditation that I've explored as well. And I would look into seeing where, if you have a local Buddhist temple in your vicinity, and just going to say hi and sitting in on some meditations, and just approach it with an open mind. And there's a lot of different variations, even within the Buddhist tradition. Vipassana training, I would recommend. The 10-day silence is really hardcore, and I feel like there's some prep to do before doing that. However, it really will teach you how to master your mind.
It'll open some doors.
It will teach you how to master your mind. So there's many different avenues to go through. I always recommend finding a teacher. Apps are great. They're a great entry point. And then developing your own personal practice. And just being diligent, just knowing, like, there's so much positive research. Everyone knows that they should meditate. And it's just being, okay, like, you just do it like brushing the teeth. It's just something you put into your routine, and just do whatever you can, whether it's 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but just do something. Do something to really focus on the breath, the thought process, like what kind of energy you're entering into your day and life with.
And in terms of, I'm asking also for myself here, in terms of, let's say, an entry point into Buddhist teachings without finding the local temple, are there any more, modern monks that have, like, are sharing teachings that are good, that would be on, like, YouTube, or would have a podcast, or even texts, maybe audiobooks or anything like that, to explore, like, a real just entry gateway that you're aware of? It could also be no.
So there's the Lotus Sutra, but that's kind of quite heavy for most people as an entry point.
I know. Live and Line listeners are pretty hardcore, so...
You can have a look at the Lotus Sutra. It might be quite intense for people. Otherwise...
Am I mental in saying Bhagavad Gita? Is that...
No, Bhagavad Gita is from the Vedic tradition, so it's the Indian tradition. It's also a good entry point, and I explored all of them, and I really enjoy. They all have different components that are very good. Any teachings on Lao Tzu as well?
Tao Te Ching,
Tao Te Ching. It's beautiful entry point to understand some of the meditative contemplation questions that come up. Buddhism, though, honestly, easy entry point texts, not really.
Okay.
Not really. Not off the top of my head, because I came into the practice fairly deep already, so I just went kind of hardcore on scriptures and hanging around with monks.
Yeah, right.
The intermediate phases.
You shaved your head already, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Well, you said there's a new centre that's opened here in Bali.
There is
So,
Bali Meditation Center that just opened up, and that's got the monks from Thailand, so they're a nice entry point, very loose, and you can just go there and meditate for as long as you like, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month. They're
Cool.
open, and they're beautiful people. All of the monks have 30 years experience plus, so it's tapping into a deep fountain of knowledge there. It's really deep. It's a deep well.
Powerful. Definitely going to check that out. Adam, thank you so much for joining
My
me
pleasure.
today.
My
Epic.
pleasure. Yeah,
Epic,
thank
epic,
you.
epic.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Any final words for the people at home?
Final words.
Something from the heart.
Do your best to bring more love and compassion into your life. And it starts with you. As Gandhi said, be the change that you wish to see in the world. So it starts with you. It's all well and good sending love and compassion out to everyone else. Do it for yourself. Be your own best friend. Be your own biggest companion, your biggest supporter, your biggest fan. So fill your cup up first.
As within, so without.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure, brother.
You.